Hey everybody, this is Ray with Unicorn Riot. We're here at DEFCON 26 at QueerCon 15, and we're speaking with Jesse, who just gave a talk on privacy and social media. Jesse, can you say a little more about your talk?
So my talk was about basically how to protect yourself from data brokers, and data brokers are people like nation states, they're Facebook, they're advertising companies, and what they do with that data and why you should care.
So I heard you say, or we've heard before, that you are the product when you're on social media, but can you kind of break down, like, what is it the product is? Like, what aspects of yourself become products?
So a lot of people think just, the clothing I wear or the places that I went, but it's much more than that. It's also every event you've attended, it's everything you've ever liked, it's all of your friends and everything your friends have ever liked, it's the political parties that you're affiliated with, it's pretty much everything about you. Are you gay? Are you straight? What partners have you had recently? Because it does extend to things like OkCupid and Tinder and things like that. And so they build a profile on not only you, but your ideologies and who you will become over time.
And I heard you say in your talk that they kind of use this ocean thing to categorize you, and then they kind of like poke the bear, like based on how they categorize you. Could you say a little more about that? Because that just that was new to me.
Yeah, okay. So ocean, I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it puts you into, are you an introvert, are you an extrovert, are you something in between? And then based on that decides how they're going to advertise to you. And then based on that, they prod you a little bit. So if you are somebody who's easily angered, you go into the aggressive type, and they will do their best to piss you off. If you're somebody who's easily terrified of things, they will try to incite fear in you. So one of the big ones was Drain the Swamp. That incited both sides of the things, but it was entirely to the vulnerable personality type. So if you're scared or you're easily angry, you're considered vulnerable, and you do well with things like Drain the Swamp because they're scary people.
And how does that work, if, to anger somebody? Like, what's the goal of that?
So the goal of that is to get them to vote in a different way, and you're either voting with your dollars and buying a product or something like that, or you're voting literally in an election.
It's a kind of general question, but how is social media free?
So social media is free is in beer, meaning when you show up to an event and there's a bunch of free beer, that beer isn't actually free because they're going to use that to sort of like liquor you up, and then in that process sell you a product. So it's like, totally have a free beer and then look at our timeshare. But instead of like, totally use our free social media platform and then maybe vote for Trump.
The data extraction that social media sites are getting, how was that used in the election recently?
So most recently, Cambridge Analytica was the main source of where that came from, and it was used to build behavioral profiles, and what they did is they did small canary groups where they did test runs of things like Drain the Swamp or Deep Nation State, and based on the reactions that people put on Facebook, whether they liked it or they angry reacted to it or something like that, they then took that data and found other people who had similar behavioral profiles and sent it to them as well. So it spread like wildfire once it was successful once. So pretty intense.
Cambridge Analytica, did you say they were called like data farms or data banks? Or?
They're called data brokers. And although Cambridge Analytica is a big one and they are now defunct, Epsilon is still very much a thing. And then there's literally hundreds of thousands others out there. And so that's why you have to do things like actually download extensions and stuff like that to block those. Because it's far more than just Facebook and Google and a couple of advertising firms.
Right.
It's not much like the monopoly that we're used to in America.
And then they're not just data brokers, but you said that they're also like NATO and like nation states. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Cambridge Analytica, if you use the Wayback Machine, which is basically the history of the internet, in that process of like looking at that, one of the things that they advertise to brag about how great they are is that they worked with the US State Department, NATO, and the UK Ministry of Defense, and based based on that, they use behavioral micro-targeting to make you feel different ways about different things. So this is really interesting because we don't know if that meant the U.S. Department of State was involved in what our election would ultimately be. And like, for instance, like things like Brexit are really interesting as well now too, because we know that political parties such as Donald Trump, and I love mentioning Ted Cruz because it didn't work for him. But we know that they swayed the election, and many other people have used these kinds of things before. Actually, Obama also used things like this. The difference is Obama had it as an opt-in thing, and it was you can join my website, and based on that you can move forward and learn more about different things of these ideologies. The reason it became a problem with Donald Trump is that no one consented to this. They can persuade you to continually perpetuate American values versus anything else. So they can literally say to be an American is to be born an American, and they can test that phrase out over time and see how it works. And over time, I mean, that is fascism, and it's concerning. And I don't feel like we're not at that level, but we're definitely at high alert red level where we need to start thinking about the fact that it could happen soon. So not quite, but soon. Provided we don't do anything about it. Maybe we do something about it. That would be cool.
And then there's kind of an argument that maybe all this tracking of data isn't necessarily bad because, you find the boots that you like and then you can purchase them. Maybe you wouldn't have seen those boots before, but how is it also dangerous? What makes it so bad?
Yeah, so it becomes bad when you start inciting violence. It becomes bad when you start scaring people to the point where they can't handle themselves anymore. Like, if you wanted to do this and you were just a researcher, you would have to go before an ethics board. Like, you would have to talk to them and present, this will, without a reasonable doubt, not hurt somebody long term. And if it will, they've consented to it entirely, and they've signed something that shows they know what they're getting into. In this current state of media, that's not the case anymore. And that's where it becomes a little bit concerning, because there's nothing stopping them from saying, like, on the positive side, they could be telling you to punch Nazis. On the negative side, they could be telling you to punch black people. And that's concerning because who knows who's in control. Like, Donald Trump hasn't necessarily told anybody to, like, attack people of color, but he has labeled people like Mexicans rapists. And if you do that, a lot of people feel very strongly about rapists and they will start attacking people. Suddenly when they see a Mexican person, they think rapist. That's a violent thing because it's not just hurting that person. That Mexican did not consent either.
Right.
And that's where it gets really concerning.
It's kind of like running experiments, but nobody kind of like opted into this, and it could be all these dangerous effects that's just kind of willy-nilly there, basically. Yeah,
and the other issue is that it spreads nations. Like, this isn't just advertising to Americans or just people in the UK. It's everywhere Facebook is active and everywhere Google is active. They can build those profiles on you, and then they can influence other ways of thinking. So a lot of people who are in the US know people in Europe because we speak the same language and stuff like that. So if fascism is in one, fascism can easily spread to the next because all of those people are together. So it's pretty intense.
Yeah, no kidding. What can we do to protect ourselves from and, maintain our privacy when it comes to social media sites online?
Well, there's a lot of different extensions and stuff like that you can use if you're just on the internet. But I guess one of the bigger things would be to use one browser for all of your social media stuff and then one browser for everything else. That's really simplified, and I still think you should automatically set your history to be removed and consider things like Privacy Badger to disable trackers and stuff like that. But at least then they're disconnected. And what you do with your friends is different from what you're buying, hopefully. The issue is that one of the things you can buy is an ideology, and so where's the line? And this is where giving the talk was very much to try to motivate people to start riling up the EFF, for instance, and saying, hey, what do we do though? is just privacy badger enough? And so, yeah, that was basically the point.
Okay. Where's the 101? Would you recommend the EFF, or where are other resources people can go to kind of get deeper information about this?
So I would say the worldprivacyforum.org as well as EFF are both really amazing resources. They will break down what a data broker is, they'll break down what's being done currently, they'll give you some solutions, and then they'll explain what exactly behavioral micro-targeting is and what personality profiles look like on you. They also have a giant list of the data brokers that we know about so far, so you can start thinking about those as you go forward.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Nice meeting you.